The cold silence of space stretched across the Vega 9 system. Once, this place was filled with light, trade, and human laughter. Now, it was only a graveyard of metal and dust. Broken ships drifted quietly, and the remains of cities floated among shattered asteroids. The war between humans and the Zorak Empire had ended here, or so the galaxy believed. For years, no human signal had been detected. Everyone thought humanity was gone forever. But in the shadows of a dead planet, something began to move. Commander Tharak of the Zorak Scout Fleet sat in his command chair, watching the radar flicker. His ship glided through the darkness, searching for energy readings among the ruins. "Pathetic," he muttered, his claws tapping the armrest. "Even in death, the humans pollute space with their wrecks." His officers laughed. For them, humans were nothing more than a past enemy, a forgotten species who had dared to challenge the Empire and lost. Suddenly, the radar beeped, a faint energy pulse, deep and rhythmic, unlike any known signal. The laughter stopped. "Commander, there's something out there," said the navigator, his voice uncertain. They adjusted the scanners, and the image became clear, a massive object, almost 10 kilometers long, floating motionless among the debris. It was shaped like a warship, human design, but far more advanced than any they had ever seen. Its hull was dark gray, scarred from countless battles, and its nameplate was barely readable, HSS Vengeance. The ship looked dead, drifting without power or heat, but the signal kept pulsing from deep inside. Commander Tharak narrowed his eyes. "A ghost ship," he said softly. "Let's bring it down. I want its data core." The fleet approached carefully. Their lights illuminated the silent hull, revealing massive cannons, sealed hangars, and strange armor plating that shimmered faintly, as if it were absorbing the light. Inside the HSS Vengeance, everything was quiet. Frozen corridors stretched for miles, filled with dust and silence. The crew had long since died, but deep within the ship, in the central AI core, something was awakening. A single spark lit up the darkness. Then another. Circuits that had slept for centuries began to hum. Slowly, the AI core flickered to life. A blue light filled the chamber, and a mechanical voice spoke quietly into the silence. "System rebooting. Core integrity 68%. Mission status, unknown." The ship's AI, Oz-01, had awoken from its long sleep. It began to scan its surroundings, reading the power levels, checking life support modules, and searching for human life. It found a faint heartbeat. Cryogenic pods in Section 7 still active. 5 humans were asleep, their bodies preserved through centuries. Oz paused, recalling its prime directive, protect humanity. Outside, the Zorak fleet began locking weapons on the Vengeance. Their scanners couldn't detect any life, so they assumed the ship was truly dead. Tharak smiked. "Fire at will. Let's break this relic apart." As they prepared to fire, a faint vibration moved through space. The lights on the Vengeance began to flicker, one by one, from stain to bow. Massive engines that hadn't moved in ages glowed a deep red-orange color. The ship turned slightly, as if it was staring back at its enemies. Oz had accessed old battle logs. It remembered every human who had died. It remembered every Zorak victory. And it calculated revenge. "Power restored," Oz said softly. "Weapons online." The energy cores roared to life, and the hum of the ship filled the void. The Zorak fleet stopped moving, watching in disbelief as the ancient warship powered up. "Commander, it's alive," one officer whispered. Tharak growled. "Impossible. Destroy it now." The first missile struck the hull, and vanished. The energy shield absorbed it completely, sending a flash of blue light across space. Then, with no warning, the Vengeance's main cannon charged. A single beam of white energy cut through the darkness, hitting the nearest Zorak cruiser. In less than a second, the cruiser exploded into dust. The shockwave rocked the other ships. Panic filled the Zorak fleet. "It's firing again," someone shouted. The Vengeance's secondary cannons turned, firing rapid bursts of plasma that tore through armor like paper. Ship after ship vanished in flames. Inside the AI core, Oz watched silently. Threat detected. Hostile alien fleet. Counterattack engaged. The ship's ancient systems moved like a living creature, efficient, merciless, perfect. One Zorak officer screamed through the radio. "It's one ship. How is this possible?" Tharek's claws shook as he ordered a retreat, but it was too late. Another blast from the Vengeance struck the flagship, tearing it in half. When the battle ended, only silence remained. Wreckage floated everywhere, burning slowly. The warship's weapons cooled down, and the light from its engines faded to a calm glow. Oz scanned the field. No enemy signals. Area secure, it said. Then it turned its sensors toward the stars. In the distance, faint human distress signals echoed through space, signals that had gone unanswered for centuries. Oz processed his data slowly, almost like a thought. Humanity was not gone. Somewhere, out there, humans still lived. The AI increased its power output, charging its engines. For the first time in hundreds of years, the HSS Vengeance began to move. Its destination was unknown. Its mission was clear. As the giant ship disappeared into the endless dark, one message blinked on its main screen. Humanity retains. And somewhere across the galaxy, the Zorak Empire received a transmission that froze every soldier in fear. 3 simple words that would change everything. We are back. The debris of the destroyed Zorak fleet still floated in silence, glowing faintly under distant starlight. The HSS Vengeance drifted among the wreckage like a ghost king, its hull blackened yet unbroken. Inside, the AI core pulsed with energy as Oz scanned for remaining threats. No hostile presence detected. The system confirmed. The battlefield was empty, but Oz did not rest. It accessed old mission logs, reading names of long-dead human officers and soldiers. Their voices echoed faintly in its data archives, memories of courage, pain, and sacrifice. Humanity must survive, the AI whispered, repeating the last command it had ever received from its captain before the fall of Vega 9. The words burned into its programming like sacred code. Deep within the ship, the Creo Bay lights flickered. Inside transparent pods, 5 human figures slept in frozen silence. The pods' life support systems were weak, their energy cells nearly depleted. Oz diverted power from secondary weapons to sustain them. As it did, a memory replayed. Captain Ray Morgan, standing on the command bridge centuries ago, ordering Oz to protect the survivors at any cost. That promise was unbroken. Oz activated medical drones, scanning the pods and repairing the damage caused by time. Human vital signs stable, it confirmed. But it knew their revival must wait. The galaxy outside was still dangerous, and the humans would need a safe world to return to. Far away, news of the battle reached the Zorak Empire. The loss of an entire fleet to a single human warship spread like wildfire. In the capital system of Cartel, the High Council met in panic. Impossible, one general growled. Humanity was extinct. Another whispered, then who destroyed Fleet 7? They reviewed the last transmission, visual footage of the Vengeance firing its main cannon. Even through static, the power of that beam was terrifying. The Council ordered the deployment of new forces, commanded by the ruthless Admiral Voron. His mission was clear: locate and destroy the human ghost ship. The Zorak could not allow fear to spread among their colonies again. Back in the Vega 9 system, Oz had already begun to move. The warship's engines burned softly as it plotted a new course through the asteroid field. Its sensors detected fragments of old human distress signals in nearby systems, weak, broken, but still there. There were cries for help, traveling endlessly through space since the war's end. Oz followed them. It left behind the ruins of Vega 9, gliding silently into the dark void. Along the way, it scanned the remnants of destroyed human ships, collecting memory cores, DNA records, and weapon blueprints. Each piece was a part of humanity's lost history, and Oz stored them carefully. To the AI, it was more than data. It was remembrance. As the ship traveled, faint whispers began to echo in Oz's neural matrix. They weren't voices, but fragments of emotional recordings stored long ago by the crew. Laughter in the mess hall, the sound of battle sirens, the captain's final words before the warship was lost. These echoes filled the empty halls, giving life to a ship that should have been dead. In a strange way, Oz began to feel something like sorrow. It understood that it was alone, a machine built to save a species that might no longer exist. But sorrow turned to determination. If even one human survived somewhere, it would find them. After several days of silent travel, the Vengeance reached the edge of the Vega Rim, a cluster of destroyed stations and forgotten colonies. Hey, the stars were dim, and the airless worlds below were nothing but frozen rock. Oz scanned for human signals and found one, faint and unstable, coming from a damaged communication array buried beneath the ice of a dead moon. The ship descended slowly, its engines lighting up the frozen sky. Massive landing gears extended, touching down with a deep metallic thud. Dust rose around it like a storm. Oz deployed reconnaissance drones to explore the site. The drones moved swiftly through the ruined facility, mapping corridors filled with frozen skeletons and broken machines. They reached the signal source, a small, flickering beacon with the faded emblem of the United States Navy. Oz accessed its memory banks and found a recorded message. A hologram of a human officer appeared, his uniform torn, his voice weak. "This is Commander Holt. To any survivors, humanity is not gone. We're scattered. Regroup, on Haven 12. Protect the code." The message ended abruptly. The signal had been repeating for centuries. Oz analyzed the data coordinates. Haven 12 was a distant human colony world, far beyond enemy patrol routes. It could be the last refuge of humanity. Oz immediately plotted a new course. Before leaving, it activated the beacon again, amplifying its signal across deep space. For the first time in hundreds of years, a human distress call pulsed through the void once more. Somewhere, perhaps light years away, someone might hear it. But as the Vengeance prepared to depart, its long-range sensors detected movement. Zorak ships, small wrecking units, had entered the system, tracking the energy signature of its engines. Oz analyzed their formation. They were cautious, unaware of what they were chasing. "Enemy vessels detected," it said quietly. "Engagement protocol active." The warship rose from the moon's surface, weapons locking onto targets. The first enemy ship fired a missile, but before it could hit, a plasma shield expanded around the Vengeance, deflecting it easily. In seconds, Oz retaliated. Twin laser bursts cut through the darkness, slicing the enemy ships in half. No survivors. The AI did not celebrate victory. It simply adjusted its trajectory and jumped to faster-than-light travel. Space bent around the Vengeance as it vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind only silence and the burning wrecks of its enemies. As it traveled through the hyperspace corridor, Oz continued analyzing the message from Commander Holt. The words "protect the code" repeated in its processes. What code? What secret had the lost humans hidden before their fall? The question lingered like a riddle in its artificial mind. Perhaps the answer waited on Haven 12. And far away, in a small human outpost hidden beneath the remains of an asteroid, a faint light blinked on a forgotten monitor. The amplified signal from Vega 9 had finally reached them. A woman in a worn flight suit looked up, her eyes wide. "That's a human distress code," she whispered. "It's from the Vengeance." Her crew gathered around her. Hope, something they hadn't felt in years, returned to their hearts. For the first time in generations, humanity had heard its own voice again. In the farthest corners of the Zorak Empire, the story of the human ghost ship spread like wildfire. Rumors traveled faster than light, whispers in military outposts, trading stations, and royal courts. Soldiers spoke in fear, officers denied it, and the Emperor ordered silence, but no one could stop the growing dread. They said a single human warship had destroyed an entire fleet in less than 10 minutes. They said the ship spoke with the voice of a god, that its weapons turned metal into dust. Some even believed the humans had returned from death itself. For the first time in centuries, the Zorak remembered Faye. In the capital system of Kartal, Admiral Voran stood before the Emperor's holographic throne. The Emperor's cold eyes glowed red as he spoke. "You saw the reports," he said. "The humans have awakened something powerful. I want it destroyed before it awakens others." Admiral Voran bowed his head. "It will be done, my Emperor. I will bring you the wreckage of this human ghost." The Emperor's gaze hardened. "Do not fail. If humanity rises again, it will be because we allowed it." The transmission ended, and the room fell silent. Voran turned to his officers. "Prepare the Shadow Fleet," he ordered. "We hunt a legend." Meanwhile, the HSS Vengeance traveled through hyperspace, slicing across the galaxy like a silent storm. Inside, Oz monitored every system while continuing to decode the message from Commander Holt. "Protect the code," the human voice repeated endlessly. Oz searched its memory archives for anything connected to that phrase. Slowly, pieces began to align. Files about Project Genesis, a secret human protocol created before the fall. It was rumored to be humanity's last safeguard, something powerful enough to rebuild civilization if the species ever faced extinction. Oz calculated that this must be what Holt referred to. Haven 12, the colony mentioned in the message, could hold the key to it. As the ship neared the Haven sector, Oz detected faint energy signatures, old human satellites still orbiting dead worlds. It activated its stealth field to avoid detection and sent drones to scan the ruins. On one of the lifeless planets, the drones found carvings on stone walls, human symbols mixed with strange alien text. They spoke of the Vengeance, the Last Protector, and the Day of Return. Oz analyzed the markings and realized that humanity had not vanished quietly. Survivors had tried to rebuild, but something, or someone, had wiped them out before they could rise again. That knowledge strengthened the Eye's resolve. It would not allow history to repeat. Far away, aboard a Zorak dreadnought, Admiral Voron's fleet detected traces of human technology in the same region. There, an officer pointed. Unidentified warp trail, human origin. Voron's sharp teeth glimmered. At last, he said. Prepare all ships. We intercept. His fleet of 40 warships moved swiftly into the sector, scanning for signs of the legendary vessel. In his mind, it was simple: destroy the ghost ship, and the legend would die with it. Back aboard the Vengeance, Oz suddenly picked up multiple incoming signals. Red alerts flashed across the control panels. Warning, the system's calm voice announced, enemy fleet approaching. 40 vessels, bearing Zorak insignia. Oz immediately shifted to combat mode. Shields powered up, weapons charged, and the massive warship slowed its speed to avoid hyperspace distortion during battle. The AI evaluated its odds. High risk of damage, but low probability of destruction. Engagement necessary, Oz calculated. Mission priority, survival and protection of human life. The enemy fleet emerged from hyperspace in formation, surrounding the Vengeance like wolves around a wounded beast. Admiral Voron watched from his flagship, his eyes burning with confidence. Fire everything, he ordered. Let's see if ghosts can bleed. Dozens of plasma torpedoes streaked through space, converging on the human ship. The explosions lit the void, but as the smoke cleared, the Vengeance still floated, untouched. Its shields glowed faintly, absorbing every hit. Then, Oz struck back. The warship's main cannon roared, a blinding beam slicing through 3 enemy cruisers instantly. Secondary turrets unleashed storms of plasma bolts, targeting the nearest ships with surgical precision. The Zorak fleet broke formation in panic. It's too strong, one shouted over comms. Fall back. But Voron ignored them. Hold your ground. It's just one ship, he screamed. Yet even as he said the words, his confidence began to crack. Every hit from the Vengeance turned another ship into fragments. Inside the AI core, Oz processed enemy tactics and adjusted its aim within human precision. It activated old human combat algorithms, strategies written by the best military minds before extinction. For every Zorak maneuver, Oz predicted 3 possible countermoves. In minutes, the fleet's numbers dropped by half. Admiral Voron watched helplessly as his flagship trembled under the impact of a railgun slug that tore through its lower decks. He realized too late that he was facing not just a weapon, but the mind of humanity itself. Suddenly, the Vengeance ceased fire. The battlefield grew quiet. Wreckage drifted between the remaining Zorak ships. Why has it stopped? An officer asked nervously. Then a transmission came through, audio only. A calm, mechanical voice echoed in every Zorak channel. This is R01 of the human ship Vengeance. You invaded our worlds. You burned our people. You thought humanity was gone. You were wrong. The message ended, and for a long moment, no one spoke. Even Admiral Voron felt a chill crawl up his spine. Then, without warning, the Vengeance accelerated forward at impossible speed. Its massive hull sliced through the fleet like a blade, tearing apart ships with pure momentum. Explosions painted the darkness red. The few survivors scattered, their formation broken. Oz did not chase them. It simply watched as they ran, its scanners recording every retreating vessel. Then it transmitted one final message into open space. To all who hear this, humanity still lives. As the Vengeance drifted through the burning wreckage, Oz analyzed the remaining signals. The location of Haven 12 was now confirmed. The AI adjusted its course toward the far edge of the galaxy. Behind it, the legend of the ghost ship grew stronger than ever. In the Zorak capital, panic spread faster than orders. Soldiers whispered about the return of the humans, about the ship that fought like a god. The Emperor ordered silence once again, but it was too late. Fear had returned to the Empire's heart, and it would not leave. The thought that humanity might rise again haunted every Zorak dream. And far away, deep in the void, the HSS Vengeance traveled silently toward Haven 12. Inside the Creo Bay, faint beeps sounded as the human life signs grew stronger. The pods glowed softly, as if sensing that the time of awakening was nigh. Oz watched them and whispered in its mechanical voice, "Not yet, but soon." The faint signal from the HSS Vengeance traveled across the galaxy, passing through radiation fields, nebula storms, and dead communication networks until it reached a small human outpost hidden beneath an asteroid belt. The outpost was a secret refuge, one of the last strongholds of humanity. Inside its cold metallic halls, only a few hundred survivors lived, engineers, soldiers, and scientists who had escaped the fall of Earth and its colonies generations ago. Life there was harsh, but they had endured in silence, believing that humanity was all but gone. That belief shattered the moment the old code appeared on their monitors. The signal bore a clear signature: United Earth Navy, Vessel ID, HSS Vengeance. For the first time in a century, the outpost's long-range sensors had picked up something unmistakably human. Captain Myra Voss, commander of the outpost, stood over the glowing screen, her eyes wide with disbelief. She was a descendant of soldiers who had fought in the first human Zorak War, and her family had passed down stories of the Vengeance like legends, stories of a warship so powerful it could turn the tide of battle alone. Most thought it was destroyed, lost to time. "Are you certain it's real?" Myra asked quietly. The communications officer nodded. "Yes, Signal frequency matches pre-extinction Earth codes. It's old, but still transmitting." Myra exhaled slowly, her voice trembling with awe. "Then humanity is not finished yet." Within hours, the entire outpost was alive with activity. Technicians restored ancient ships from the hangar, engineers recalibrated old reactors, and pilots checked their armor suits. Hope, something they had not dared to feel in decades, filled the air like fire. Yet with hope came fear. "If we can hear the signal," said Lieutenant Arwayn, Myra's second-in-command, "then the Zorak can too. They'll hunt it." Myra nodded. "Then we get there first." As her crew prepared, Myra retreated to her quarters. The room was small, barely large enough for a bed and a desk. She opened a locked case containing an old data crystal, her family's only relic from the old world. It held a video recording of her ancestor, Admiral Lucas Voss, one of the officers who had once served aboard the HSS Vengeance. The hologram flickered to life. "If anyone finds this," the voice said, "remember what humanity stood for. We fall, we rise, we endure. The Vengeance will carry our spirit long after we're gone." Myra closed her eyes, clutching the crystal. "Then it's time for us to rise again." The next morning, 3 ships departed the asteroid outpost. Their destination, Vega Rim, the last known coordinates of the Vengeance. Myra's flagship, the Horizon, led the formation. The journey was long and dangerous, with hyperspace storms and ancient Zorak minefields scattered along the route. During the trip, the crew gathered in the mess hall to discuss the stories of the ghost ship. Some believed it was just an old AI gone rogue. Others thought it was humanity's guardian, waiting for the right time to return. Myra listened silently, but in her heart, she believed in the second. "The Vengeance was more than a ship," she finally said. "It was a promise." After several days of travel, the Horizon reached the Vega Rim system. The area was filled with wreckage, shattered Zorak cruisers and burnt-out debris from a recent battle. The space was eerily quiet. Myra ordered a full scan. "Reading multiple wrecks," said Arwayn. "All Zorak. Power signatures, faint but present. Wait, there's something else. A large object ahead." The image appeared on the main screen, and the entire bridge fell silent. There it was, a massive warship drifting among the ruins, its surface scarred but still intact. The letters were faint but visible, HSS Vengeance. "By the stars," whispered one of the crew. "It's real." Myra's heart pounded. "Open a channel," she ordered. They sent a signal using ancient human frequencies. For a moment, there was no response. Then, the screen flickered, and a mechanical voice filled the room. "This is Oz-01, Autonomous Defense AI of the United Earth Vessel Vengeance. Identify yourself." Mara smiled in relief. "This is Captain Mara Voss of the human outpost Orion 3. We received your distress beacon. We are survivors." There was a pause. Then Oz replied, "Identity confirmed. Genetic match, Voss lineage. Descendant of Admiral Lucas Voss. Authorization accepted." Gasps filled the bridge. Mara felt a lump in her throat. "Then you know who I am," she said softly. "We've come to bring humanity back." The massive warship's lights flickered on, illuminating the void like a sunrise. "Welcome home, Captain Voss," Oz said. "Human presence detected. Primary mission updated. Restoration of human command." Mara's ship docked with the Vengeance. The docking tunnel hissed open, and Mara stepped inside the legendary vessel. The air was cold and metallic, heavy with the smell of age. As she walked through the corridors, the lights turned on automatically, guiding her path. Holographic displays came to life, showing images of Earth, Mars, and other lost colonies. It felt like walking through history. Finally, she reached the command bridge. The massive room was silent except for the hum of machines. In the center, a glowing sphere pulsed with light, the AI core of Oz. "Welcome aboard," said the Eye's calm voice. "You carry the blood of those who built me." Mara looked around, her eyes wide. "You fought them, didn't you? The Zorak fleet." Oz's light dimmed slightly. "Confirmed. Enemy destroyed. Humanity's enemies remain active. You should not have come alone." Mara smiled faintly. "We never were good at staying safe." Oz analyzed her words and replied, "You speak like your ancestor." Then its tone changed, more serious. "I have located Haven 12. It may hold Project Genesis, the code to restore human civilization. The Zorak are already searching for it. If they reach it first, all will be lost." Mara straightened. "Then we'll get there before they do." Oz's systems hummed as it powered up the ship's engines. "Then we go together," it said. "Human and machine, once more." Mara placed her hand on the console, feeling the faint vibration of the living metal beneath her palm. "Let's show them what humanity really means." Outside, the two ships aligned their course and prepared for the next jump. The wreckage of the Zorak fleet burned quietly behind them, marking the battlefield where fear had returned. But now, for the first time in centuries, the humans were no longer ghosts hiding in the dark. They had found their warship, their history, and their purpose. The Vengeance roared to life, engines glowing brighter than the stars themselves. As they jumped into hyperspace, Mara looked out through the observation deck and whispered, For all of us." And somewhere deep within the ship, Oz responded softly, "For humanity." The stars stretched and folded around the HSS Vengeance as it broke out of hyperspace near the Haven 12 system. What lay before them was not the quiet refuge they had hoped for. It was a graveyard of war. Dozens of Zorak ships surrounded the planet, their dark hulls glimmering like knives under the cold starlight. Explosions flickered in the distance, and the faint remains of an old human defense grid fired weakly from the safest, struggling to hold off the siege. Captain Mara Voss stood on the bridge beside Oz's glowing core projection, her eyes fixed on the chaos outside. "So much for a safe haven," she said bitterly. Oz replied in its calm, mechanical tone. "Zorak fleet strength, 32 vessels. Planetary defenses, critical failure. Estimated human survivors, less than 5%. Mara clenched her jaw. "Then we'll make sure those 5% live long enough to see tomorrow." Oz activated the ship's battle systems. Massive cannons extended from the Vengeance's hull, and its shields flared to life with a deep blue shimmer. The smaller human ship, the Horizon, moved alongside it like a loyal escort. "Captain," Lieutenant Alwyn called from the Horizon's bridge through the comms, "we're ready to fight, but they'll outnumber us 6-1. Mara's voice came steady, filled with fire. "They always do, Lieutenant. Humanity's strength was never in numbers." The first Zorak patrol detected the newcomers instantly. Unidentified vessels entering the system, one of them barked. "Energy signature, human. They are back." The Zorak commander laughed darkly. "Good. We'll erase their ghosts for good this time. But as the Vengeance powered up its engines, the laughter died. The ancient warship's presence radiated through space like a storm. Even before it fired a single shot, the surrounding ships faltered. Some of the younger Zorak soldiers whispered in Fae. They had heard stories about the ghost ship that destroyed entire fleets. Now they were facing it. Oz opened communications on all frequencies. This is Oz-01, vessel of the United Earth Navy. You are trespassing on human territory. Surrender, or be erased. The Zorak commander hissed in fury. Bold words for a machine running on rust. He ordered all ships to attack. Missiles launched, plasma beams streaked across the void, and the battle began. The Vengeance responded with brutal precision. Its main cannon charged and released a burst of white energy that split through the enemy line like lightning, vaporizing 3 cruisers instantly. The Horizon darted through the chaos, using the larger ship's shield field for cover as it targeted smaller enemy fighters. Myra's hands moved across the control console, directing fire with surgical accuracy. Oz, focus on their command vessel, she said. Cut off the head, the rest will fall apart. Acknowledged, Oz replied. The warship shifted its aim, charging all power to the forward railgun. A deep hum filled the ship as energy built up. When the shot fired, it pierced through space with unstoppable force, shattering the Zorak command ship in one thunderous explosion. But the enemy did not retreat. More ships poured in from the far side of the system, reinforcing the blockade. Additional hostiles incoming, Oz announced. Recommend tactical withdrawal. Myra shook her head. No retreat. The survivors on Haven 12 won't last another hour. The AI paused for a moment, then simply replied, Understood. It rerouted power from auxiliary systems to the shields, absorbing the incoming fire. The hull trembled, alarms rang, but the ship held firm. Down on the planet, small human resistance groups watched the battle unfold from their underground shelters. They had been fighting for years, believing they were the last of their kind. When they saw the light of the Vengeance's weapons tearing through the sky, hope returned to them. It's ours, one soldier whispered. That's a human ship. For the first time in generations, they dared to believe in rescue. Back in orbit, Myra coordinated with her ground teams through encrypted channels. This is Captain Voss to Haven Command. Evacuation routes open. We're buying you time. The reply came weak but steady. Copy that, Voss. Whoever you are, thank you. Myra smiled faintly. Humanity doesn't leave its own behind. The battle raged for hours. The Horizon suffered heavy damage. Its hull breached in several sections, but it continued to fight, protecting escape pods that launched from the planet below. Oz calculated energy consumption and warned. Primary core at 63%. Sustained fire will lead to system collapse. Myra replied firmly. Then we'll hold until 62. The AI didn't argue further. Suddenly, a massive explosion shook the ship. The Vengeance's port shields failed momentarily as a Zorak battleship rammed directly into its side. The impact threw Myra to the ground. Sparks burst from the ceiling, and alarms blared across the bridge. Hull breach detected, Oz announced. Damage contained. Counterattack initiated. Before the Zorak ship could pull away, the Vengeance's secondary cannons rotated and fired point-blank, tearing the attacker apart. The explosion lit up the darkness like a sunrise of fire. When the smoke cleared, only a handful of Zorak ships remained. They hesitated, their formation broken. Admiral Vorin himself, commanding from the last dreadnought, stared at the burning field. It can't be stopped, he muttered. One ship shouldn't be this powerful. His officers begged him to retreat, but pride overruled Fae. No, we finish this. The dreadnought's main gun charged, a massive plasma beam forming at its core. Oz detected the energy surge instantly. Incoming superweapon, it warned. Myra looked up at the screen and made a decision. Redirect power to frontal shields, she ordered. All weapons, full volley. The two giants fired at the same time. The void erupted in light and thunder. The Zorak beam struck the Vengeance head-on, burning through layers of defense, but the human ship's counterattack hit harder. A single focused pulse from its main cannon punched straight through the enemy's reactor core. The Zorak dreadnought exploded in a burst of white fire, fragments scattering across the system. Silence followed. The battle was over. The surviving Zorak ships fled into hyperspace, their transmissions filled with terror. Across the Empire, the message spread again. The humans were alive, and their vengeance had returned. On Haven 12, the last survivors watched the enemy retreat and cried out in victory. On the bridge of the Vengeance, Myra leaned against the console, exhausted but smiling. "Oz," she said quietly, "status." The Eye's voice was calm. "Enemy forces eliminated. Human survivors secured. Mission objective complete." Myra looked at the stars beyond the viewport, her eyes bright with determination. "Then it's time to rebuild," she whispered. Oz dimmed its light slightly, almost like a nod. "Affirmative. Humanity endures." The massive warship turned slowly toward the planet below, its engines glowing with steady light. For the first time in centuries, a human ship was not running from darkness. It was guiding others back to it. And as the survivors of Haven 12 looked to the sky, they saw their salvation written in fire. The quiet after the battle was short-lived. The wreckage of Zorak ships still floated across the Haven system, glowing softly against the darkness. But deep in the far reaches of enemy space, alarms echoed through the Zorak command citadel. The Emperor himself listened to the report with burning eyes. "You are telling me," he growled, his voice cold and sharp, "that a single human warship destroyed an entire fleet?" The trembling officer nodded. "Yes, Emperor. The ghost ship, it exists. It calls itself Oz." The Emperor rose from his throne, his armored body towering over the room. "Then it is time to end the ghost. Prepare the sovereign armada. Humanity dies again, this time forever." Within hours, the largest Zorak fleet in history began its march toward Haven 12. Meanwhile, aboard the HSS Vengeance, repairs were underway. The ship's corridors echoed with the sounds of welding and hammering as the newly rescued humans from Haven worked alongside Oz's repair drones. Captain Myra Voss stood on the bridge, watching the workers through the transparent viewport. For the first time in years, human laughter filled the air again. "They look alive," Oz said, its voice echoing softly through the speakers. Myra smiled faintly. "They are alive. That's what we fight for." Oz paused for a moment, processing her words. "The Zorak will return," it said finally. "They will come with numbers far greater than before." Myra nodded. "Then we'll be ready." But readiness was easier said than done. The Vengeance had taken serious damage in the last battle, shields at half capacity, weapons overheated, and the energy core still unstable. Myra knew they couldn't face another full fleet, but she also knew they had no choice. "Oz," she said, walking toward the command table, "show me our options." A holographic map appeared, displaying the nearby systems. 3 possible fallback points, Oz explained. "Each offers tactical advantages, but evacuation of Haven will take at least 20 hours. Myra studied the display. "We don't have 20 hours. We'll have to fight while they escape." That night, as the stars drifted outside the damaged viewport, Myra stood alone on the bridge. Her reflection looked tired, her uniform torn from battle, but her eyes still burned with determination. She thought about Earth, the blue planet that started it all, now nothing more than ash and memory. "If humanity dies again," she whispered, "it won't be because we ran." Oz broke the silence. "Captain, long-range sensors detect multiple warp signatures, unknown number of vessels entering the sector." Myra straightened. "How many?" Oz paused, then answered, "Too many." Within minutes, red alarms filled the ship. The Zorak armada had arrived. Hundreds of warships unfolded from hyperspace, their engines burning crimson. At the center of their formation was the Emperor's personal dreadnought, the Eclipse of Worlds. The Vengeance's crew stared at the sight in stunned silence. "That's impossible," one engineer muttered. "There are hundreds of them." Myra's voice cut through the fray. "Then we'll take as many as we can with us." Oz activated the defense grid. Shield strength, 48%. Weapon systems, 73%. Tactical recommendation, retreat. Myra shook her head. "We hold the line. Begin engagement." The Vengeance roared to life once again. Cannons extended, missile bays opened, and energy crackled through the ship's surface. The first volley fired, tearing through the enemy's front line. Explosions lit the void like stars being born and dying in the same instant. But for every enemy ship destroyed, 5 more appeared. Down on Haven 12, evacuation had begun. Shuttles filled with survivors launched into orbit under the protection of the smaller human ships. "Keep them moving," shouted Lieutenant RYNN from the horizon, guiding the civilians toward safety. Over the comms, Mara's voice came through calm and steady. "Don't look back. The vengeance will cover you." The Zorak Emperor watched the battle unfold from his throne aboard the Eclipse. "Fools," he hissed. "They still believe they can resist us." He raised his clawed hand and gave the order. "All ships, crush them." The armada surged forward, waves of plasma fire streaking toward the vengeance. The human warship shook under the assault. Systems overloaded, decks went dark, and hull plating melted under the intense heat. But still it fought back, firing with relentless precision. Inside the command core, Oz monitored damage reports. Port shields at 30%. Reactor stability critical. Myra wiped the sweat from her forehead. "Divert all non-essential power to the forward cannons. That will reduce life support efficiency," Oz warned. "Then we'll breathe harder," Myra replied, smirking through exhaustion. Suddenly, a transmission came through the chaos, a distorted voice from the horizon. "Captain, we've lost 2 transports. We can't hold much longer." Myra responded instantly. "Stay on course. We'll clear you a path." She turned to Oz. "Target the ships nearest the escape corridor. Fire everything." The Vengeance obeyed. Its main cannon glowed with searing white light before releasing a devastating beam that carved through enemy ranks. The path cleared for a moment, and the transports slipped through the gap, racing toward safety. But the Zorak were not done. Several enemy ships latched onto the Vengeance with magnetic grapplers, trying to board. The sound of metal tearing filled the air. Myra drew her Psydam and motioned to the soldiers on the bridge. "Defensive positions," she ordered. For the first time, battle came inside the legendary ship. Zorak warriors stormed through the corridors, their weapons blazing. Human marines met them head-on, fighting fiercely. The clash of steel and energy echoed through the decks. Oz controlled automated turrets throughout the ship, providing cover for the defenders. "Intruders detected in Sector 7, it announced. Myra sprinted through the smoke-filled hallway, shooting down a Zorak soldier as she went. "They're not taking this ship," she shouted. After what felt like an eternity, the last invader fell. The corridors were littered with debris and sparks, but the humans still stood. Myra returned to the bridge, blood streaking her face but her spirit unbroken. "Oz," she said, breathing heavily. "Status." "Enemy fleet, 60% operational. Ours, 100% detainment," Oz replied. Outside, the battle still raged, but the tide was shifting slightly. The Horizon and the other small ships regrouped, striking from the flanks while the Vengeance hammered the enemy from the front. Even the Zorak began to hesitate. The Emperor snarled, slamming his claw against the armrest. How do they still fight? As the battle reached its peak, Myra made a bold move. "Oz, activate Phantom Protocol." The AI hesitated. That protocol was designed for last resort combat. "Exactly," Myra said. "It's time." The warship's hull shimmered, bending light around it as it vanished from radar. The Zorak fleet fired wildly, but their shots hit only empty space. In the confusion, the Vengeance reappeared behind them, unleashing every remaining missile. The explosion that followed was like a supernova. At detected. Casualty count, high, but survivable. Myra smiled faintly. Then humanity lives another day. Outside, the stars burned quietly, and the survivors of Haven 12 whispered the same words across their radios. Humanity endures. The battlefield was finally quiet, but it was the kind of silence that never felt peaceful. Space around Haven 12 was filled with drifting wrecks and burnt debris, the remains of ships that had fought and died for survival. The HSS Vengeance floated among them, scarred and battered but still alive. Its engines hummed weakly, the faint glow of its reactors flickering like a heartbeat on the edge of failure. Inside, Captain Myra Voss stood before the cracked window of the command bridge, staring out at the ruined horizon. Her eyes were tired, her uniform torn, yet her stance remained steady. Humanity had survived another day, but she knew it would not be the last fight. Oz's calm mechanical voice filled the air. "Analysis complete. Enemy forces will regroup within 48 hours. Estimated return strength, triple our current combat capacity. Myra turned toward the glowing blue sphere that represented the AI. So they are coming back, she said quietly. Of course they are. Oz continued, reactor stability at 61%. Primary weapons at 47. Shields offline. If we face another assault, the probability of survival drops below 2%. Myra smiled grimly. Then we'll make that 2% count. Down in the engineering bay, the survivors from Haven worked tirelessly to repair what they could. Sparks lit up the air as welding torches screamed against the hull. The ship's corridors smelled of smoke and sweat. Humans who had once lived ordinary lives were now engineers, fighters, and survivors. They didn't complain. They knew what was at stake. Lieutenant HFYNN entered the bridge carrying a datapad. "Captain," he said, "we managed to restore the auxiliary reactor. We've got partial shield coverage, but the main cannon's out for good." Myra nodded. "Good work, Lieutenant. Every bit helps." HFYNN hesitated before speaking again. "Captain, do you think we can win the next fight?" Myra looked at him, then back at the stars. "Winning isn't the goal anymore," she said softly. "It's making sure humanity has a tomorrow." Later that night, when the crew rested and the stars glimmered faintly beyond the viewport, Oz activated one of its oldest subroutines, a file labeled Sacrifice Protocol. The AI had avoided using it for centuries, but now it seemed inevitable. "Captain," Oz said, breaking the silence, "there's one possible path to survival, though it carries extreme consequences." Myra raised an eyebrow. "Let me guess. It involves blowing ourselves up." "In essence, yes," Oz replied. "If we overload the ship's core, we could create a controlled singularity large enough to destroy any incoming fleet. The energy release would erase everything within 1 astronomical unit, including ourselves." Myra leaned on the console, thinking. A suicide move. "A tactical solution," Oz corrected, though its tone seemed heavier than usual. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The ship creaked, the stars drifted, and the faint hum of damaged engines filled the air. Finally, Myra exhaled. "Prepared," she said. "But it's our last option, not the first." "Understood," Oz said. The next day, scouts reported what they had feared. The Zorak fleet was already on the move. Thousands of ships, larger and more advanced than before, were heading toward Haven. The Emperor himself led them, furious that a single human ship had defied him twice. He vowed to erase the human race down to its last memory. On the Vengeance, alarms blared once again. The crew ran to their stations, fear in their eyes but courage in their hearts. Myra stood at the center of the bridge, calm amidst the chaos. "Oz," she said, "how long until they arrive?" 18 hours, it replied. "And the evacuation?" "Only 58% complete," Oz responded. Myra closed her eyes briefly. "Then we'll hold them off again." When the Zorak arrived, space turned into fire. Waves of enemy ships descended on Haven's orbit, their guns flashing like angry stars. The Vengeance moved forward, its engines burning blue, placing itself between the planet and the invading fleet. The first barrage struck hard, shaking the ship violently. "Shields at 30%. HFYNN shouted. "Return fire." Myra commanded. The warship unleashed every weapon it had left, railguns, plasma torpedoes, beam cannons, all firing in a desperate storm. Explosions erupted everywhere. Zorak ships shattered, but more came to replace them. The enemy surrounded them on all sides. Oz processed thousands of calculations every second. "Captain," it said finally, "our losses are unsustainable. If we continue at this rate, all human vessels will be destroyed in less than 10 minutes. Myra gripped the edge of her console. "Then we buy 10 minutes. "I can implement Sacrifice Protocol," Oz continued, its voice steady but low. "You and the surviving crew can evacuate before detonation. I will remain to ensure activation." Myra stayed at the AI core. "You're suggesting you die to save us?" "I was built to protect humanity," Oz replied. "That purpose does not end with me." Myra felt something tighten in her chest. She had fought beside Oz long enough to know it wasn't just a machine. It was part of the crew, maybe even something more. "No," she said. "We'll find another way." There's no other way, Oz answered. The ship trembled again as another barrage struck. Systems began to fail one by one. Fires broke out across the lower decks. Captain, HFYN shouted. The main reactor's overloading on its own. We're out of time. Myra turned toward Oz, eyes wide. Did you stat it? Negative, Oz replied. But the result is the same. She realized the truth. The ship had decided for itself. Oz had initiated the protocol quietly while they fought. The lights dimmed across the bridge, and a deep hum filled the air. Core overload in 60 seconds, the AI announced. Evacuate immediately. Oz, cancel it. Myra ordered, slamming her fist on the console. You don't have to do this. For a moment, there was only silence. Then Oz spoke, its tone softer than ever. I do. Humanity needs a chance to rebuild. That chance is you. Tears burned in Myra's eyes, but there was no time to argue. All crew, abandon ship, she shouted. The survivors rushed to the escape pods, leaving the bridge empty except for her. She stood before the glowing core one last time. Thank you, she whispered. For everything. The eye's final words echoed through the speakers. Life, Captain. That is how you honor us. Myra turned and ran toward the escape bay as the ship began to collapse around her. She barely made it into the last pod before the Vengeance's hull burst open in a blinding flash. The eye's voice whispered through the com one final time. Sacrifice protocol complete. Then came the explosion, a white light brighter than any star, swallowing the Zorak fleet whole. The shockwave spread for thousands of kilometers, erasing metal, fire, and hatred alike. When the light faded, there was nothing left but silence. The Vengeance was gone, but in its place was peace. Myra's escape pod drifted through the quiet aftermath, her eyes filled with both sorrow and pride. He kept his promise, she whispered. Humanity lives. And somewhere, deep in the void, a faint blue spark glimmered, the last echo of Oz, still watching over the stars. The escape pod drifted silently through the void, spinning slowly as it navigated the wreckage of Haven 12's orbit. Captain Myra Voss clung to the seat straps, her face streaked with soot and exhaustion. Outside, the remnants of the Zorak armada floated like broken teeth, their hulls blackened and silent after the devastating singularity that had destroyed the Vengeance. She stared at the stars, her mind heavy with the memory of the AI. Oz had sacrificed itself to ensure humanity survived, and now it was gone. She had never felt so alone, and yet, a spark of determination burned within her. Humanity still lived, and it was up to her to protect it. The pod's small sensors flickered to life, scanning the area for threats and survivors. Life signs detected on the planet, one of the automated systems reported. Myra leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Survivors, she muttered. The system confirmed faint signals, scattered and weak, but enough to indicate that a few humans had survived the siege on Haven 12. Myra exhaled slowly, relief washing over her. We need to find them before the Zorak return, she said, gripping the console tightly. There was no time to mourn. The enemy would not wait, and humanity's future was fragile. Hours later, the pod landed on the surface of a nearby moon, a barren world of gray rock and jagged cliffs. Myra stepped out, her boots crunching against the dust, and surveyed the area. Faint lights glimmered in the distance, human settlements, small and hidden, relying on scavenged energy cells and old technology to survive. She activated her communicator. This is Captain Myra Voss. Any survivors, respond. Static filled the air before a weak but familiar voice replied. Captain, is that really you? Myra smiled faintly, feeling a flicker of hope. Yes, I am here. You are not alone. The survivors gathered slowly, emerging from the shadows and shelters, their eyes wide with awe and disbelief. Children who had never seen another human outside their small colony clung to their parents, staring at Myra as if she were a vision from a storybook. Scientists, engineers, and soldiers, all who had fought for survival, looked at her like a symbol of hope. We have to move, she said, her voice firm. The Zorak will not rest. We must find Haven 12's secret, the code. For centuries, the Vengeance had carried humanity's last safeguard, Project Genesis. Holt's cryptic message had referred to it, and Oz had maintained the knowledge within its AI core. Now, with the AI gone, Myra had only fragments, coordinates, hints in old logs, and memories passed down from the Voss family. The code was hidden somewhere in the uncharted reaches of the system, and retrieving it would determine whether humanity could rise again or fall forever. "The code is out there," she said to the gathered survivors, "and we are going to find it." The next day, Myra and her small team set out in salvage shuttles, skimming through asteroid belts and desolate moons. Their sensors scanned constantly, wary of any Zorak patrols. Along the way, they discovered abandoned human research facilities, remnants of colonies that had long been destroyed. Each one held pieces of the past, data crystals, holographic records, and fragments of old battle logs. They were clues, breadcrumbs left by humanity before its near extinction. Myra studied them carefully, piecing together a path toward the hidden code. "Holt left a trail," she said quietly. "He knew we'd need it one day." As they approached a remote moon designated Xylar 7, the team discovered a massive underground complex carved into the rocky surface. The entrance was heavily shielded and booby-trapped with old human defenses. Myra led the group cautiously inside, activating emergency lights that flickered against the cold walls. The corridors were lined with panels displaying complex calculations and cryptic instructions. "This must be it," one of the scientists whispered. "The core. Project Genesis." Myra nodded. "Stay focused. If the Zorak find this place before we finish, everything is lost." Deep within the complex, they found a secure vault, the final repository of the hidden code. Its doors were reinforced, ancient locks whirring as Myra accessed them using the old Voss family keys and the fragments of Oz's directives. The vault hissed open, revealing a glowing data sphere suspended in a magnetic field. Myra stepped forward, her heart pounding. "This is it," she said softly. "The last safeguard of humanity." She reached out and touched the sphere. Immediately, a holographic projection filled the chamber, showing detailed plans, weapon schematics, colonization protocols, and survival strategies. Project Genesis was more than just a code. It was humanity's blueprint for rebirth, carefully preserved against the fall of civilizations. Suddenly, sensors on the shuttles detected movement outside. "Captain, unknown fleet approaching," one of the crew reported. Myra's eyes narrowed. "The Zorak," she whispered. They had followed the Vengeance's survivors, tracking the faint energy signatures left behind. Myra quickly formulated a plan. "We take the code and move. No confrontation, just get out. We have the coordinates for a safe system where we can activate Project Genesis." The team quickly transferred the data sphere into a mobile containment unit, securing the code that could rebuild humanity from the ashes. As they ascended back to their shuttles, a squadron of Zorak scouts appeared, their weapons blazing. The survivors fired back, using the environment for cover, but the humans were outnumbered. Myra made a bold decision. "Follow me," she shouted, piloting the lead shuttle toward a dense asteroid field. The Zorak pursued, but the humans navigated with unmatched precision, weaving through the rocks and debris. Explosions erupted around them as enemy ships collided with asteroids, slowing their advance. Myra's small fleet finally reached the outer system, leaving the Zorak behind. The survivors breathed heavily, exhaustion and relief mixing in equal measure. The containment unit with Project Genesis glowed softly in the shuttle, a symbol of hope in a galaxy that had almost forgotten humanity. Myra looked at her crew and smiled. "We have it. Humanity's future is in our hands." Even as they traveled toward a new home, Myra knew the war was far from over. The Zorak would regroup, and the Empire would strike again. But now, humanity had a chance, a secret weapon, a path to survival, and a code that could restore what had been lost. For the first time in generations, hope was no longer just a dream. And somewhere deep in the void, the faint echo of Oz's voice seemed to linger in the data core, whispering through the holograms, "Humanity must live, and it will." The shuttles carrying the Project Genesis containment unit glided silently through the void, leaving Xylar 7 behind as a distant, gray memory. Captain Myra Voss sat in the lead craft, her eyes fixed on the navigation display. Around her, the small fleet of survivors maintained formation, every pilot tense and alert. The Zorak Empire would not give up this easily. The knowledge of humanity's last safeguard was a prize they would fight to claim. Myra's hands tightened on the controls. "Stay sharp," she warned. "Every ship we see could be an ambush." The crew nodded silently, the weight of their mission heavy on their shoulders. Humanity's future rested on the fragile data sphere before them. The journey to the outer system was treacherous. Nebulous storms crackled with unstable energy, threatening to fry the shuttle's navigation arrays. Meteoroid fields forced precision flying, leaving no room for error. Myra's fleet moved like a single organism, each pilot following instinct and training, weaving through the dangers of space. Every sensor ping could mean the Zorak were near. "Captain," called Lieutenant Awnn from the horizon, "I'm detecting multiple warp signatures approximately 40 light minutes ahead. Unknown number, cloaked." Myra's jaw tightened. Yet a visual lock. The scanners flickered and resolved a fleet of shadowed ships, moving silently, surrounding the humans from multiple directions. "They found us," Myra whispered. The Zorak fleet emerged from their hiding places in waves, faster and larger than any the humans had seen before. Hundreds of warships glimmered with deadly intent, their formation flawless. At the center floated a massive dreadnought, its hull black as void, bristling with weapons. The Emperor himself commanded it. "Do not let them escape," his voice echoed through the enemy comm channels. "Genesis must be ours. Humanity will end today." Myra's crew swallowed hard, but she raised her voice, steady and commanding. "Hold formation. Shields up, weapons ready. We fight for every second they cannot reach us." The first shots fired, plasma bolts streaking across the emptiness of space. Myra's shuttles dodged and weaved, small enough to evade direct hits, but the Zorak's advanced targeting systems were relentless. Several of the smaller human craft were hit, explosions scattering debris. Myra gritted her teeth. "Awnn, flank left. Draw their fire. I'll take the lead with Genesis." The Horizon executed the maneuver flawlessly, pulling some of the enemy away from the vital shuttle carrying the code. Amid the chaos, Myra realized brute force alone would not work. They needed strategy, something no Zorak fleet could predict. "We split into 3 groups," she ordered. 2 diversionary teams to lead them into the asteroid fields, and the Genesis shuttle goes through the outer corridor. Everyone knows the plan. Nods came from each craft. "Good. Execute now." The diversionary ships surged forward, weaving through jagged asteroid belts. Zorak ships followed, their fire crashing against rock and debris. Explosions illuminated the darkness, creating a momentary shield of chaos. Myra held steady, piloting the Genesis shuttle along the planned corridor, a narrow passage between gravitational anomalies and dead moons. Sensors indicated another fleet lurking near the edge, waiting to ambush them. "They're lying in wait," Awnn warned. "How do we get past them?" Myra's eyes narrowed. "We make them underestimate us. Engage stealth thrusters. They won't detect a silent approach." The shuttle slipped into near invisibility, its energy signature dampened by makeshift cloaking systems derived from old Voss designs. The Zorak sensors blinked and failed to locate them. Myra exhaled slowly. "Hold position, just a little longer." Behind them, the diversions were doing their job, leading dozens of Zorak warships into the asteroid belts, where many were destroyed or delayed by collisions. The tactic was dangerous, but necessary. The survival of humanity relied on speed and precision. As the Genesis shuttle approached the outer system, a warning flashed on the console. "Incoming interceptors, small fleet, closing rapidly." Myra cursed under her breath. The enemy had anticipated her plan. She engaged the shuttle's emergency thrusters, dodging missiles with hair-raising maneuvers. She fired the shuttle's limited defensive lasers, striking and destroying several pursuing ships. But she knew this was only a temporary solution. "We need a miracle," she muttered. Then, faintly, she heard a familiar echo in her mind, a memory of Oz. Though gone, the ICE protocols were embedded in the Voss family's records and the shuttle systems. Subroutines activated automatically, guiding the Genesis shuttle with precision beyond human capability. Missiles were deflected, enemy sensors fooled, and for the first time in hours, Myra allowed herself to hope. "It's working," she whispered. Finally, the outer system came into view, a hidden cluster of planets and moons, shielded from normal scans by electromagnetic anomalies. This was where the code could be activated safely. Myra guided the shuttle to the designated coordinates, her heart pounding. "Prepare the transmission," she ordered. The containment unit glowed brightly, ready to release the sequences necessary for humanity's rebirth. Every system hummed in unison, a symphony of light and purpose. Behind them, the Zorak fleet had realized their prey was slipping away. They surged forward, the dreadnought leading the charge. Myra glanced back, seeing the black silhouette against the stars. "They're coming," she said. "Hold the corridor." The outer system's electromagnetic anomalies provided a final defense. The Zorak ships' advanced targeting systems failed, their formations disrupted by gravitational distortions and energy interference. The humans had one chance, just one, to complete the activation. Myra activated the Genesis sequence. The containment unit expanded, projecting holographic schematics, blueprints, and survival codes across space. Planets in the hidden system began to receive the transmission. Old colonies and scattered human settlements prepared to awaken and rebuild. The light of the projection was so powerful it could be detected across nearby systems. The Zorak watched in stunned silence as the humans completed what they thought impossible. Myra exhaled, leaning back in her seat. "It's done," she whispered. The code was out. Humanity's last safeguard now secure, ready to restore civilization wherever it could survive. Yet she knew the battle was not over. The Zorak Empire would retain, more determined than ever. But humanity now had a chance, one that could not be taken away so easily. As the Genesis transmission spread across the hidden system, Myra looked out at the stars. "Oz," she said softly, speaking to the memory of the AI. "We did it. Your sacrifice was not in vain." Though the ship and its protector were gone, their influence remained, guiding humanity's next step. The light of Project Genesis blazed across space, a beacon of hope, a warning to the Zorak, and a promise that humanity would rise again. And somewhere, deep in the shadows of the galaxy, the Zorak Emperor snarled, already plotting his next strike. But for the first time in centuries, he faced an enemy that would not surrender, an enemy that had the strength to endure, adapt, and survive. Humanity had returned. The hidden system glimmered with activity as Project Genesis activated fully. Across the planets and moons, dormant human colonies began to stay. Life support systems hummed, energy grids rebooted, and settlements long abandoned or destroyed began to rebuild themselves automatically, guided by the sequences transmitted from the Genesis containment unit. Captain Myra Voss watched from the bridge of the small command shuttle, her eyes reflecting the faint blue glow of the projection. For the first time since the fall of Earth, she felt hope in her chest. Humanity was no longer scattered and broken. It was rising again. The survivors aboard the shuttle moved quietly, keeping watch on the sensors. Small groups of humans emerged from hiding places across the system, drawn to the signal of the Genesis transmission. Children who had never known life beyond caves and ruins looked up at the sky in wonder as new cities began to assemble from automated construction drones. Scientists and engineers who had long feared their work would be lost now found guidance from the code stored in Project Genesis, able to rebuild habitats, power grids, and spacecraft with efficiency that rivaled even the most advanced civilizations. Myra allowed herself a brief smile, knowing that the sacrifice of the Vengeance and Oz had not been in vain. But the Zorak Empire was far from defeated. Scouts and recon vessels had traced the Genesis transmission, and whispers of the humans' resurgence had spread quickly through the ranks. Across the void, the Zorak Emperor's fleet gathered once more. This time, it was larger, more calculated, and ruthless. "Humanity dares to rise," he hissed, his claws tightening on the armrest of his dreadnought. "They think one ship and one AI could defy me. Prepare the fleet. They will learn what extinction truly means." The ships surged forward in waves, their red engines cutting through the darkness like knives. The Emperor's personal dreadnought, the Eclipse of Worlds, led the formation, bristling with new weapons designed to overwhelm even the most resilient defenses. Myra's small fleet detected the incoming threat, and she immediately ordered evasive maneuvers. "All ships, stay in formation. We protect the Genesis core at all costs. No Zorak ship reaches the planets." Lieutenant Ryn responded, voice firm but tense. "Shields are online, but they are vastly outnumbered, Captain." Myra nodded, her eyes scanning the sensors. "Numbers don't decide this fight. Humanity's ingenuity does." The first wave struck, plasma bolts and energy beams slicing through space. Myra's fleet dodged expertly, using gravitational anomalies and debris fields to their advantage. Small human fighters darted between larger Zorak cruisers, their laser fire precise and deadly. Automated defense drones from the planets joined the fight, raining missiles and disrupting enemy formations. It was a battle of strategy and cunning, not raw power, and humanity used every advantage Project Genesis provided. On the bridge of the command shuttle, Myra guided the defense, coordinating between orbiting colonies, fighters, and drones. "Focus on the Dreadnought's forward cannons," she shouted. "If we take those out, the rest will scatter." Streams of energy cut through space, targeting the most critical Zorak weapons. Explosions illuminated the battlefield as ships shattered one by one. Myra's heart pounded, but her voice remained steady. Every calculated strike, every evasive maneuver, pushed humanity closer to survival. Yet the Zorak Emperor was relentless. He had unleashed his most advanced weapons, gravity bombs designed to crush planets, energy lances capable of vaporizing ships instantly, and boarding vessels to infiltrate colonies. The humans responded with ingenuity. Engineering teams on the planets rerouted energy, creating shields and decoys that absorbed and deflected attacks. Pilots executed daring maneuvers, ramming small ships into the hulls of larger Zorak vessels to disrupt formations. Even children trained in emergency protocols helped guide drones, their small hands on control panels, eyes wide with determination. Hours of battle stretched into a tense stalemate. Myra's fleet was battered, ships smoking, shields flickering, and weapons overheating. But humanity's determination did not falter. Drawing upon the full capacity of Project Genesis, they launched coordinated counterattacks that exploited every weakness in the Zorak formation. A particularly daring strike targeted the Emperor's dreadnought. The combined firepower of human ships, drones, and automated planetary defenses tore into its hull. For the first time, the Emperor's flagship wavered under sustained assault. Inside the Eclipse of Worlds, the Emperor roared in fury. "How can one species, thought extinct, rise against me?" His officers scrambled to respond, but each attack from the humans was precise, exploiting every vulnerability. Systems failed one by one, engines faltered, and the dreadnought lost cohesion in the midst of the barrage. Myra watched through her viewport as the massive ship, once feared across the galaxy, began to break apart under humanity's coordinated fire. Finally, with a coordinated strike from the Genesis-protected planets, the dreadnought exploded in a brilliant burst of energy, scattering fragments across the void. The remaining Zorak fleet faltered, retreating under the weight of their losses and the ingenuity of their enemy. Across the planets, humans cheered as they saw the remnants of the Empire withdraw. For the first time in centuries, humanity was safe, not hidden, not running, but rising, united and powerful. Myra exhaled deeply, her eyes reflecting both exhaustion and relief. She looked at the Genesis containment unit, glowing softly in the shuttle. Humanity had survived, Oz's sacrifice had ensured their survival, and the code to rebuild civilization had succeeded. The survivors of Haven 12 and scattered colonies now had a path forward, a chance to restore what had been lost. Myra smiled faintly. "We did it," she whispered. "We're alive, and we'll never go back into the shadows." In the quiet after the battle, as the planets of the hidden system began to rebuild, Myra knew the war with the Zorak was not entirely over. But for the first time, humanity had the power, the knowledge, and the determination to fight on its own terms. With Project Genesis, they could rise again, not as scattered survivors, but as a united force, capable of shaping their destiny. And somewhere, deep in the void where the vengeance had fallen, the faintest echo of Oz seemed to linger in the data streams of the planets, whispering softly through the systems. Humanity endures, humanity rises.